Tofshin Chavav, Maimer from Shabbos Parshas Bahar, B'Choisai, Mevorch Machodesh Sivan, 1966. In B'Chois Teilechu, the beginning of our parsha starts. If you will go in my chukim, and you will, with mitzvahs, you will observe and guard my mitzvahs, you shall do that. Afterwards, the Torah enumerates all the different physical promises that Hashem promises us that we will get when we will follow the mitzvahs and learn Torah, as I'll soon explain. The idea that there is good promises of the physical benefits is brought down in many places in the Torah. The Fratkan especially is brought down over here, Shazel Parsha Klolis. It's a general Parsha, meaning in our Parsha it doesn't just say about one particular mitzvah or certain mitzvahs that will bring great reward. Like it says, you should be so it gives over there a physical reward that your days will be lengthened because you honor your father and mother. But over here, it's a general part. It's talking about Torah and mitzvahs. You do everything, and then Hashem promises us these physical things. If you will go in my chukim that's going on Torah study, like Rashi explains, that since it says right afterwards, mitzvahs tishmaidu, so b'chokais telechu must go. It already speaks about mitzvahs. So b'chokais telechu speaks about toiling in Torah. That's mitzvahs tishmaidu ze'ukim mitzvahs. You shall observe my mitzvahs. That's going on fulfillment of mitzvahs. But Tzarech L'Havim, the Rebbe says we need to understand. Since over here he speaks about you will go in my chukim, that is talking about Torah study. And not just any type of Torah study, but in a way of traveling and going. The true idea of traveling is when you go in a way of you completely are going higher, incomparable to your previous level. If you're still tethered and connected to your previous level, so you're not really traveling, you really haven't left your previous level. Also over here is included the idea of you will observe my mitzvahs, and the fulfillment of mitzvahs in a most elevated way. How do we know that the mitzvahs in this parsha is talking about something in a most elevated way? The mitzvahs, like it's obvious from the reward that he's enumerating over here about the mitzvahs. Like the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, that the reward of the mitzvah is the mitzvah. Is the fact that the Torah says, and the Mefarshim explain on this, that the reward for Torah mitzvahs is having that the crops, that the kernels of wheat will be as fat as kidneys. That's how powerful the reward for the observing the mitzvahs is. Until where it says in our parsha that I will lead you upright. Giselle Takus Ali is that's the ultimate level of ascent, the highest type of level that you're going so high up. So if we're talking about such a great reward, so we're talking about such a great fulfillment of mitzvahs. And after studying Torah study in such a way, and the fulfillment of mitzvahs in such a way, he enumerates physical promises of things that we will benefit physically from the fulfillment of Torah and mitzvahs, and he doesn't mention any type of spiritual benefits. At least bring it in about some type of spiritual reward. You don't want to make that the main reward, fine. Speak the main reward about the physical, but at least bring it in, at least make some type of mention that we're talking about, that there's a spiritual reward as well. Then the Rebbe goes on another question. Gamsak love, and also we need to understand the reward that Hashem says, I will give you your rains in its times. That's the reward for what it says. that if you will go in my chukim, so Rashi explains, taken from the Gemara, from the Chazal, that it's talking about toiling in Torah, not just studying Torah. L'chudas, the Rebbe asks, seemingly, on the Moitzim, we find that we can have the reward of getting rain even without toiling in Torah. And we say this every day in Krishma, a few times a day. That's what it says. If you will listen, meaning you will follow the Torah, over there it speaks about getting the rains, even if we're not toiling in Torah. As long as you don't have the idea that you will turn away from Hashem's Torah, still it says, I will give you the rain of your land. Why over here? For the sake of my giving the rains in its times, there has to be specifically toiling in Torah. That was the second question. A third question is, why is the expression over here specifically that Rashi and the Chazal use toiling? Why is it insufficient? The common expression used, studying Torah or involved in Torah, to be able to know the great matter of toiling in Torah. It'll be understood from what's brought down the Gemara al Pasuk. Says in the pasuk in Iyov, Adam la amal yivole, the person, or Yula, the person is born to toil. And the Chazal analyzes what type of toil are we talking about. Shema toimer amal mlacha. Perhaps you'll say it's the toil of work, amal sicha, or the toil of speech. So the Gemara concludes by bringing different proof that the pasuk is referring to the toil of Torah. Every person, that's what the pasuk says, a person was born to toil, meaning the toil of Torah. Comes out that the goal of the entire creation is the toil of Torah. Even more so. They says a person was born for toil. What is it? What's the emphasis on the idea of birth? He says the term indicating he was born. The idea of birth, that's something that comes, something new, not something from nothing. The idea of birth is something that's from the power of the infinite, like it's brought down the Hemshech V'Amar with the Rebbe Rashab of the year Tafresh Nun Zayin. That in a similar vein, toiling in Torah is similar to this revelation of the Ein Sof. And despite all of this, how great this toiling is and what type of high level it's from, when it comes to the reward about it, that this is something that transcends all of this. He enumerates all types of promises of physical and material benefits. The Rebbe continues, be understood according to a Maimer with Tzemach Tzedek. That's on the pasuk of Chodesh Zalachem. Skip the parentheses. Maybe Sham be'inyan parnasa gedoyla min hageul. He brings down an interesting Maimer Chazal. The Chazal derived from certain psukim that parnasa, rain coming down, is the way in an agricultural society people made a living. That's how they had the parnasa. And the Tzemach Tzedek brings from a Maimer Chazal that says parnasa is greater than the redemption. And we'll soon see that the Geula has to do, can come from a Malach. When it comes to Parnasa, it comes from Hashem. It says, I will give you the rain. But when it comes to Geula, it says, even a Malach can bring about the Geula. And it says in general, the key to rains is something that the rain coming down from above is something that Hashem keeps for himself. Tzarech Lahavim, so the Rebbe asks about this. How can you say that making a living is greater than the redemption? Don't we say when Hashem chose Yaakov and his children, he established for them a month of redemption, which is Nisan. The Indian Parnasa, the idea of making a living, Tishrei, that's the month of Tishrei, because in the month of Tishrei is when Hashem decides and sets aside what will be the amount of money I will make for the rest of the year. That the old ones, before Hashem established Nisan as being the first month, the old ones used to call Tishrei the first month. But then Hashem established that Nisan is the first month. The month of Tishrei is the idea of making a living. Concerning the idea that Tishrei represents Parnasa, we say, when Hashem chose Yaakov and his children, only then did he establish for them a month of redemption. How is it possible that there could be an opinion that Parnas is greater than the redemption? Especially Nisan. Nisan shows on miracles, and Tishrei is about the natural order of the world, which Parnas is about. The Rebbe answers, it depends what level of Parnas. Indian idea behind the scenes, Parnas is basic on him. In Parnas itself, there are two types. Yes, Parnas, Shilamatim and Agula, there's a type of making a living that's below the level of redemption. That's similar to Tishrei, which is lower than this. Yes, from the Parnasa Shalamaylam in Agula, and there's a way of making a living that's beyond redemption. Parnasa Shalamatim in Agula, who in Chodesh Tishrei. The Parnasa, the making a living that's lower than Geula, that's the idea of the month of Tishrei. Say the Ishtalshus that shows on the chain order of descent of the world. While Parnasa Shilam in Agula, concerning the Parnasas beyond the redemption, we say, V'nasati gishmechem be'itom. I will give you the rains in its times. It doesn't say who gives it, meaning it's beyond any type of name of Hashem and beyond any type of revelation of Hashem, no godly revelation. It's Hashem himself. Concerning this, it says, it says a pasuk in Eov, he places the rain upon the face of the earth, and he sends out the waters on the face of the outskirts. So the Chazal explain that when it comes to Eretz Yisrael, Hashem himself places. That's what it means, Hanoisim. He himself sends the rain to Eretz Yisrael. When it comes to Chutzos, in Chutzlar, it's outside of Eretz Yisrael, that he sends it out via messengers. So we see over here again, rain, which is connected with Parnasa, like we said before. There's two types of rain. There's the rain that Hashem is directly, he himself is involved, and then there's the rain that he gives via a messenger. The Inyan Shosholech Maim Apnei is the idea that he sends water upon the face of the outskirts, outside of Eretz Yisrael, for example. Kisham Shochi B'Seder Ishtalshlos, meaning when the Amshachas are coming down from Hashem in the chain order of the descent. Also, Maim Sholech Maim Apnei Chutz, so then he is just sending it out over the outskirts. Skip the parentheses. As opposed to when it's coming down beyond the whole chain order of descent of the worlds. It comes down upon the face of the earth, upon Eretz Yisrael. This is a joining and a union of Hashem with the worlds in an inner type of union, in an intimate union. From Hashem's brachas that he's bringing directly into Eretz Yisrael, then he's sending it out to the outskirts. Like Chazal say, mitamtzis Eretz Yisrael nimshach al kol ha'arotzis, from what comes out of Eretz Yisrael, that's what comes out afterwards, the rain to everywhere else. Now we can understand why it says in our pasuk where it says, concerning this, it says, I will place the rains, I'll put the rains in their times. And it doesn't say Yudke Vavke will place the rains in its time. Zelakim will place the rains in its time. It's I will place the rains. The bomb is coming from a place that's beyond every chain order of descent. From the level of I, the very I of Hashem, his very being, his very essence, that is so high beyond any name, it's not even hinted. Hashem's I essence is beyond being hinted in any letter and even any point on top of a letter. Now we can understand where the toil of Torah comes in. To be able to tap into this parnas, to the level of rains, to the part that's higher than Seder Ishtalshus from Hashem's very essence, one needs to have not just ordinary Torah, but one needs to have the toiling in Torah. As opposed to what we say in Krishma. That it will be if you will listen. Over there it's speaking about a parnasa that's coming down by the chain order of descent. So it should be able to be the parnasa of the chain order of descent, that level of making a living. We don't need what it says in the first parsha of Krishma. That in the first parsha of Krishma it says with all your might. That Chassidus explains that means an unbounded and unlimited type of service of Hashem. In the second parsha of Krishma it says all it says with all your heart and with all your soul. It doesn't say it's sufficient when you're dealing with the parnasa that's coming from Seder Ishtalshus. It's enough to do only the avodah with all your heart. That's why the Chassidus explains the deeper meaning. Why the second part of Krishma is called, they do not make up the will of Hashem, meaning that even though he's studying Torah, and even though he's involved in Torah, since there isn't the idea of doing it with all your might, going out of boundaries and limitations, this is called, we're not doing and making up his will. To be able to make Hashem's will, which the will of Hashem is beyond the limitations of the world, beyond Seder Ishtalshus, we need to break out of our boundaries as well. Yet, we still have parnas. Like he said, through Torah studying, being involved in Torah, so I will give the rains of your land. Because that is what's being drawn down from the chain order of descent. Hashem made a promise, made a covenant with Noach about the world running in a natural way that, contrary to what took place by the Mabul, by the flood, that everything stopped, the seasons stopped, the normal running of the agricultural season stopped. Instead, Hashem made a promise, a covenant with Noach, and he said, I'd call Yemei ha'aretz, evermore, all the days of the land, of the earth, the zera, planting, the kotzer and harvest, the kites, the choyrev, summer, winter, loyish boisid, they will not cease. Ivim came, because of the promise, mitzat krisis brista Noach l'chud, just for the promise that Hashem made with Noach, it would have been sufficient that I would gather the grain and I would gather the oil, the wines and the oil. Like he said already in the covenant with Noach, the sowing and harvesting, that's the idea of your grain and your wine, etc. Like explained in the Hemshech of Tafshich Samach Vav, the Rebbe Rashab, that already by Noach's time it was established that the world should get what it needs. Once Noach came out of the table. But we still find that it's dependent on some basic type of idea of our Torah study and mitzvahs. This was prior to the giving of the Torah, where Hashem promised that there will be in the world this type of Amshach. After the giving of the Torah, also those matters that had to be because of Hashem's promise and covenant that He made with Noach. Also has to be through Torah study and fulfillment of mitzvahs to draw them down. Like it says in the Kuntus of Mind of the Rebbe Rashab, a Yid cannot receive in any other way, only through fulfilling Torah mitzvahs. That's why in Krishna we say, when you will listen, then I will give you the rain. We call Malcolm still in all, to get the rains, to get the parnasa in the basic way, you do not need to do it with all your might going out of boundaries. It's enough to do it for your heart and for your soul. That's the basic idea. He's studying in Torah. He's involved in Torah. You do not need to toil in Torah. As opposed to drawing down the parnasa from a level where I give. From there should come down the level of your reigns. For that, a person needs to do things with all of his might. To draw down from beyond the chain order of descent. And from Hashem's very essence, through leaving one's boundaries down here below. We want Kaviyach Hashem to go out of His boundaries, to come out of His very essence. So we have to go out of our boundaries. But tefillah, when we're talking about davening, that's the avodah of with all your might, going out of boundaries and limitations. That's the avodah that goes out of the limitations of our internal soul powers like intellect and emotions, and beyond our transcendent soul powers, which is known as will and delight. He's going beyond that. But Torah, what does it mean in Torah? Going out of bounds. It's a manner of Torah study. It's in a way of toiling in Torah, not just studying Torah. Also, the fulfillment of mitzvahs has a way of doing it that's beyond the limitations. It's in such a manner that he says initially in the pasuk, again, it's repetitive. It says, you shall observe my mitzvahs, and afterwards you shall do them. Initially says you shall observe the mitzvahs. When it says the observant and the guarding of the mitzvahs, that's not talking about the action of the mitzvahs. The action is the next part, where it says, you shall do that. But rather it's talking about something that means that I am investing my intention and my thought process. That the thought of the mitzvahs, the intentions of the mitzvahs are really much, much higher than the level of the action of the mitzvahs. Therefore, so it should be able to come about it afterwards in actuality. So we need Dafka Hashem, the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, that joins the thought and intention, which is way higher than action, to join it together. So therefore, when we fulfill mitzvahs, not just an action, but we do mitzvahs tishmoiru, we have the intention. So then the mitzvahs is also outside of the regular boundaries of fulfilling a mitzvahs. And therefore, so therefore also the fulfillment of mitzvahs is done without boundaries, beyond limitations. That's similar to what we said, that a service in Torah learning is toiling in Torah, which is out of bounds, and his davening is out of boundaries. By days when a person is going beyond his boundaries and limitations in Torah mitzvahs, so then he draws down to making a living from a level of I will give, that's beyond the level even of Geula. And then when it comes down, so it impacts the world in an over-the-top type of manner. Then it says that the kernels of wheat will be as big as kidneys. Until Chazal said that even barren trees will give fruit. It's beyond the rules of nature. That's the idea of toiling in Torah. The concept of toiling in Torah is about this type of going outside of the bounds. Well, through this, he gets hold of the infinite. The Zohar says people that squeeze themselves, pressure themselves, in other words, toil in matters of wisdom and Torah. Like in general, in the Hemshech of Tavish Samachvav, he speaks about toiling in Torah. Befrat by Maimer, the Ramaskel B'Chokoisei, especially the Maimer entitled B'Chokoisei in Samachvav, by Dei Amelim B'Torah, specifically through toiling in Torah, specifically through that, he is able to grasp the infinite, that which is beyond bounds. Concerning this, we say, Parnasa G'doyla min HaGeula. Parnasa is greater than redemption. The Indian Hagula Shliach, the idea of redemption could be through Shliach, like I mentioned before, like it says, Hamalach Hagoya Loisi. So it's possible that a Malach could be the one that could do the redemption. That's why the Haggadah had to tell us that Hashem said, I redeemed the Eden from Mitzrayim, not through a malach, meaning there was a possibility for a malach to do redemption, or else why would the Torah why would God have to tell you, I took you out, not a malach? Obviously, in essence, or at its core, redemption can come through a malach. As opposed to making a living. That's beyond redemption. That comes from where it says, I will give. Anoichi Mishanoichi, I who I am, that's not hinted in any letter. Not only is not hinted in any name, but not even any letter, not even any point on top of a letter. And how do we tap into that? This we draw down specifically through the toil of Torah. That's why it says every person was born to toil. We mentioned before that the idea of birth, that's a renewal of something from nothing, is only by the power of the infinite. And only in birth is found the power of the infinite, the power of the Ein Sof down here below. Like Alter Rebbe wrote in Tanya. Only Hashem's very essence has the capability and power to bring it, to make and to create something from nothing. By the Koyach Sof, later through the power of the infinite comes about the idea of birth, because birth and procreation is an infinite power, because you give birth to children, they give birth to children further, and so on. Like to explain that blend in that hemshech that we mentioned before of Tov Resh Nun Zayin. Therefore, he connects these together. And he says, Adam la'amal yula, that a person was born to toil. There's a connection between toil and the idea of birth, which is the Ein Sof, because with toil we tap into the Ein Sof. As opposed to the Parnas in the month of Tishrei. That's a result of the chain order of descent. That's the month of Tishrei. That's Teva. That's nature. That's the natural thing. That is the advantage of Nisan over Tishrei. Nisan is beyond the chain order of descent. Famous question that many Mefarshim ask: how come when Hashem introduced himself to us at the beginning of the Aseret Adibros, did he say, I am Hashem your God that took you out of the land of Mitzrayim? Why didn't he say, I am the Hashem that created the heavens and earth? Because the idea of Geula is higher than the creation, meaning Parnas of the month of Tishrei, because that's Parnas of Seder Ishtalshlus, because Nisan and Geula is higher than the Seder Ishtalshlus of Parnas. Just like in everything, you need to have an intermediary to connect them. The same thing over here, so too over here. To be able to draw down the service, that's in a way with all your might. Should come down in actuality in the fulfillment of Torah mitzvahs. And so to the draw down from the level of I who I am, shall come down here below in the physical. Your reigns in its time. How could we have the utmost highest level to come down here? You need an intermediary. That's the level of Torah. Do as it's known. Any intermediary needs to have in it both from the higher level and the lower level. Think of a bridge, for example. A bridge that needs to connect two sides of a river, for example. One end of the bridge has to be on, not just next to, but on one side of the shore of the river, and the other end of the bridge has to be connected and upon the other shore that's on the other side of the river. The same thing, any type of intermediary has to have something of the higher level and something of the lower level, or else it couldn't connect both of them. Moikein is so too, but Torah. The Torah is an intermediary between the emanator, Hashem, that's higher than Atzilus, to the 10 spheres. The emanator, Hashem, is higher than the 10 spheres. He's also beyond the limitation of being unlimited. Skip the parentheses, and especially the spheres of Atzilus are limited by being 10 spheres, not 9. The Torah is an intermediary between the emanator and those spheres that were emanated from him. That, like it's explained in the Hemshech of the Frierdiker Rebbe on the pasuk that says, he wraps himself with light like a tunic, like a cloak. So what's these two ideas? So it says, Shemavayr, the Frierdiker Rebbe explains, Yesh b'toira bezein yanim shel oir ulevush. There's oir and there is salma. There is the light and there is the tunic, the garment. So Torah, this is actually, the Frierdiker Rebbe says, it's referring to Torah. And Torah can be a light and can be a garment. What does a light show on? Revelation. A garment, on the other hand, conceals. So there's an aspect of Torah which is revelation, followed by a concealment of Torah. So he said, there's in Torah both aspects of light and a garment. That's the idea that we said that an intermediary has to have in it both. The Torah is an intermediary between the creator and the created being. And even more so, the Torah is an intermediary between the emanator Hashem and all emanated beings. The Maitzil, the emanator, the Ein Sof, is higher than the 10 spheres because the 10 spheres are limited. Especially when the 10 spheres are revealed in the world of Atzilus, they're even more limited. They are 10 and not 9, 10 and not 11, like it says in Sefer Yetzirah. The Torah is an intermediary between the emanator and the emanated beings. The two levels of Torah that we mentioned before, there's one level of Torah that's the light, and the second level of the Torah, it's a garment. So the garment part of Torah, which is a concealment, that's the revealed part of the Torah. The hidden, the inner part of the Torah, that's the light part of the Torah. By days through the Torah having both of these components, it could be a memutza, it could be an intermediary. It's an intermediary to draw down from Hashem's essence. From I who I am. It should come down here in the physical. So too in a person in his service. From his level in avodah of experiencing an unbounded like love of Hashem, he's able through Torah to translate it and to bring it down lepoil mamish to actuality, bekima Torah mitzvahs, the fulfillment of Torah mitzvahs. That's a very practical example of this. A person could sometimes be so excited about Hashem and so spiritual and so over the top in love with Hashem, but he doesn't find the means to express it. So the idea of Torah helps him bring that very high level, that level that transcends the world, that spiritual feeling that he has, that desire to have this powerful love for Hashem, to translate in Torah mitzvahs. Torah is the intermediary that brings that emotion down into the fulfillment of Torah mitzvahs. And now the Rebbe connects it with, yesterday was Lag BaOmer, so it's the Rashbi. Even though when the Rebbe said the Maimer is already in Chabdaladi or quite a few days after Lag BaOmer, but still, we're still under the impression and under the feelings of what took place with the Rashbi. In the times of Rav Shimon ben Yochai, there were those Tanoim that studied only the revealed part of the Torah. And there were those Tanoim that studied only the inner part of the Torah. There were those Tanoim that studied also both the revealed part of the Torah and the inner part of the Torah. But the Rashbi was unique even over the last category. Enkenetz Rashbi Hoyam Nigla Upnimius Biyacha. By Reb Shimon ben Yochai, it was both the Nigla and the inner part of Torah together. The inner part of the Torah manifested and expressed and was connected with the revealed part of the Torah, which is what we said before. The Torah has to become a connection and a channel for the most inner feelings to the Maisa mitzvahs and from Hashem's very essence with the physicality of this world. This was by him in a revealed way. And that was the matter of Reb Shimon ben Yochai in his service to Hashem, that he incorporated and joined the most highest level with the lowest level. We can connect this also with Reb Hillel Parasha said that he heard from Reb Isaac Hamler that Reb Isaac Hamler said it in the name of the Alter Rebbe. When it came to Reb Shimon ben Yochai, he did not experience, he was not living in a churban state of mind. And the reason is, like we said before, by him, since there was the joining of the revealed part of the Torah and the inner part of the Torah. In other words, he had both the garment part of the Torah and the light part of the Torah. So therefore, he had the Torah as it is a full-blown intermediary. And therefore, since he had a full-blown intermediary of the Torah, therefore, by him, all matters of Hashem's essence manifested itself down here below. There was no concealment. Hashem himself was revealed to him down here. Because of that reason, the whole destruction of Beis Hamikdash did not impact. That's why Rabbi Kiva told him, Dayach, it's sufficient for you I and your Creator recognize you. Because Rav Shimon bar Yochai was super high. Therefore, he says sufficient that only I and your Creator recognize you, because he was way above the world. No one else could appreciate the heights that Rashbi was at. And yet, despite the fact that he was so high and so removed from this world, Rashbi, he drew it down here below in a revealed way. By revealing the secrets of the Torah in an understood and comprehensible way. It's not just that in the service to Hashem he had both of things. He was able to draw down from Hashem's essence down here below, so far below, till actuality in the physical sense. Where do we see in the physical sense that the Rashbi drew this down? This is what is brought down concerning the Rashbi, that the Rashbi said, Sha'amar im kulam zoidim b'charshim toira mateila. If everybody is preoccupied with their field, and they're sowing their fields, and they're plowing their fields, what's going to be with the Torah? Who's going to be involved with Torah study? This was the idea of the Rashbi, that Torah was his profession. There are those that only study Torah and are involved in Torah, but they're not toiling in Torah. Then there are those that only in certain times they're in a way of toiling in Torah. It's not such a way that they've completely internalized. As opposed to the Rashbi and his colleagues, that their Torah was their profession. This was something that was constant. This is why the Rashbi bar Yochai said, what's going to be with the Torah? This was his entire being, that the Torah was his profession. From there, he drew down in the physical sense, mamish, because they asked him, or he explained, but what's going to be about making a living? How are people going to support themselves? So he said, concerning someone that is involved in Torah, it says, that foreigners will rise up and they will take care of your flocks, they will take care of your sheep. So by the Rashbi, who was truly joining the spiritual and the physical, he had it manifest that he didn't have to worry about the parnasa. Not that the Rashbi affected there won't be a physical world. Now, like they also Paul begashmi, Yuzodim, through his Torah, he affected in the physical that there will be farm, meaning non-Jews. There will be sheep. And those foreigners, the non-Jews, will arise, and they will take care, they will take your sheep out to pasture. This is also the reason Masha be Yosef and Ma'ara, while he was in the cave, while he was hiding in the cave with his son of Elazar from the Romans, so a carob tree grew miraculously, or was created, and a spring was created miraculously, and that's how he lived. The way how the carob tree was created was from heaven. It wasn't a natural situation that hiding in the cave that should grow a carob tree. The Rashbi availed himself of a state of parnasa that was higher than Seder Shtalshus, so we said before, is beyond redemption. Because the sustenance came from that level of Hashem, that's I, who I am, like it says in our parsha in the Sati, I will give the rain. With this we can answer what the Achronim asked, a very interesting question about the carob tree that grew for Rav Shimon bar Yochai. How is it possible that he sustained himself and he had food to eat from the carob tree the first 3 years? It was Arla. We know that a tree, the first 3 years that it grows, one cannot eat the fruit. So when Hashem created the tree, what happened the first 3 years of the growth? One of the answers for this is since the tree came from heaven, there's a cloud. The Chazal say that nothing impure comes down from heaven. So therefore, since the tree was a miraculous heavenly creation, therefore the idea of Arla did not apply. There was the prohibition of the 3 years did not apply. He was allowed to eat it right away the first year. If so, but then there's a different problem. It says that a person may not derive pleasure and benefit from maisin, from actions, from things that come and create miraculously. So over here, it seemed to be that he benefited from a miracle. So the Rebbe goes on to say, it's also not an idea of a miracle that we say that one should not derive benefit from a miracle. Or they say that if a person does benefit from a miracle, that they subtract from his merits when he does have a miracle performed for him. This is only when a miracle occurs through davening for it. Then when a person davens for a miracle, then Hashem is changing the laws of nature for the person's sake. That the setup of nature is becoming shook up and destroyed. In such a case, he is being subtracted from his merits. As opposed to when it comes from such a place that's totally beyond nature. And the way it is beyond nature, that's the way it comes down here below. In other words, the very supernatural state, that is coming below. Not that I'm davening for Hashem to break nature. It doesn't mean that they're changing for his sake nature. And this supernatural thing that they're breaking, he's bringing down here below into the world. With this has answered the question of the latter commentators. How could it be that the Rashbi had benefit from miraculous occurrences? He didn't have benefit from something that was miraculous, because rather nature wasn't broken, but in nature it was brought down. This is also that when the Rashbi, there's a story that the Gemara relates about a certain student that was upset about a friend of his that was, or that the student, not a certain student of the Rashbi went out into the world, left yeshiva, and he was successful in business. So the students felt bad. Why did he be able to make it materially and they couldn't? So the Rashbi called together all of his students. Us from Labika, he brought them, he gathered them to a plane. Amar, and he said, Bika, and he said in the plane, Bika Ismali Dinizov, let the plane become filled up, or plane you shall fill up with golden dinars. Like we explained at length about this, the Rebbe says at one occasion, the Rashbi did not say that gold should come down from heaven. He said specifically that the plane itself should give forth golden dinner. Why? What's the difference if it came from the heavens or not? Because what we're saying, that the actual earth itself, which is where the gold is buried, gives forth the golden dinar. It's not considered that the dinars itself were created supernaturally, as if they would come down from the heavens, would be a rain of golden dinars. So, this is similar to what's going to be when Mashiach comes, that the Parnasa will be greater than redemption. That the wheat will be as big as kidneys. Still, barren trees will also be fruitful. This is what it says: if you will go in my chukim, I will give your rains in its times. This is not just talking about physical promises. Although gam yudim ruchnim, it's also talking about spiritual promises. Even more so, prior to the physical, there are these matters the way they exist in the spiritual realm. Some tzaddik explains that when it says the earth will give forth its produce, it's talking about spiritual earth and spiritual produce. And afterwards it comes down by chain descent in the physical. The earth will give forth its produce until the wheat is going to be as big as the kidneys. Still in all. What's explicit and open in the pasuk is not the spiritual, but the physical, material things. It's the fact that it speaks about it in the physical, we derive and we know, like the Tzemach Tzedek wrote, how it's in the spiritual. And afterwards it came down into the physical, like it says in the Rebbeinu of the Tzemach Tzedek, to called over everything in the physical came down by chain descent from the spiritual. But in a revealed sense, first it speaks about the matters way down in the physical. But in speaking and teaching, we first speak about the physical, we speak then afterwards about the spiritual, though in the order of things, first it had to come down into the spiritual and then it could come down into the physical. So too in Torah mitzvahs we say what's primary? Action is primary. Though it's incomparable to the level of thought and the intention of mitzvahs, though it's incomparable to the will of the heart, which is the love of Hashem. Despite that, we say the action is primary. So too when it comes to promises concerning physical things, that's the parnasa that's beyond redemption. This is also understood from what the Rambam says about Mashiach's time. When the Chachamim did not desire the days of Mashiach, Ella only not to be able to have all types of comforts and rule over the world or whatever. The reason why they desired the Mashiach's time, they should be able to learn Torah in peace. How can you learn Torah in peace? Through having a comfortable living. From this we see the entire idea of redemption is for the sake of parnasa. That's the level of parnasa that's beyond redemption. And that is Mashiach's time. The parnasa that's beyond redemption is the goal of the redemption. The redemption is to reach that parnasa that we're going to have when Mashiach comes. We'll be able to sit and learn with peace. That's the reason why we always read Parshat B'Chakosim and Shabbosim that are close to Shavuos, because Shavuos is about the giving of the Torah. Till the Gaonim said that the reason why we read Parshas Vamidbar between B'Chokosai and Shavuos is only to separate between the negative rebuke that's in Parshas B'Chokosai to the Yom Tov of Shavuos. You don't want to go from the negativity of B'Chokosai into Shavuos. That's the idea that Eibishter gave the Yidden the Torah so he should be able to go in my chukos. And also the Yisrael chukos was matan Torah b'zayim oiskim, that he gave the Bnei Yisrael the chukos in the time of the giving of the Torah, and this is what they're involved in. That's what they say that shows on letters of engraving. And engraved letters shows that it's completely joined with Hashem, like engraved letters completely joined with the rock upon where they're engraved in. It shows on Hashem's very essence. Like it says in Kudei Torah, that's the level of the letters of engraving. And if this we're going, concerning as we say, when there's the idea of you will go that they accept upon themselves the idea of toiling in Torah, then we're bringing the redemption away of speeding it out.
Sounds like a family plan.